everybody, welcome back to Eggs, the podcast, featuring the best and brightest minds in business leadership, entrepreneurship, and technology. Today, we are thrilled to have John Smiddy, founder of Lead Plan Marketing and author of Stop Guessing, Start Marketing. John has perfected his marketing strategy over the past 10 years, creating the P5 marketing formula that helps business owners develop a successful marketing plan sure to attract and grow their core customer base. Today, he'll be sharing his insights on building a strong brand identity, scaling your business with effective marketing, and navigating the digital marketing landscape. We'll also dive into his recently published book, Stop Guessing, Start Marketing, where he shares the secrets of his easy-to-follow, step-by-step P5 formula. Get ready to learn from the best in the business, and please join us in welcoming to the show, John Smiddy. Hey, John, how are you, man?
Hey, good. Thanks for having me on, Ryan.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate you.
Yeah, really appreciate your time. Can you give us a brief background on yourself? Tell us who you are, what you do.
Yeah, sure. So who I am is John Smiddy. I own and run a marketing agency called Lead Plan Marketing. And I started my career back in, I always say my career starts in about 2005. And at that time, I was working as a touring artist. So it's funny because the transition going from touring artist into marketing really was a natural one for me, because understanding your audience is like the core piece of marketing. You got to understand the audience that you're talking to. You got to understand how to cater to that audience, right? And how to get a group of people like we used to do to a stage. How do we get them now to a website, say, as one example? So I was touring. I did a pretty large tour, Vans Warped Tour, 2005 through 2008. And in 2008 is when I decided that I was going to leave touring and I was going to leave music, that it wasn't what at that time I was 27-ish years old. I know I was getting close to 30, and starting to have these thoughts of like, is this really going to happen for me? Should I continue down this path? I didn't want to go too far down the path and then it's too late to make a transition. So I decided, I'll take what I know and see if I can use these skills that I have and transition into a career. And at the time, a lot of what I did for the group that I was in was all of the marketing stuff. And this was back when like Facebook was starting to come out and MySpace was big and stuff like that.
I was going to bring that up. I remember that time frame and doing the MySpace bots and the trying to get the likes and the follows and all that. The 2005
and all that stuff.
Yeah, that's some good
so
times.
I was using those tools to promote our shows. Not only were we doing like Vans Warped Tour, we had a stage, the Skull Candy stage on that tour, but also we were doing dates in some of the cities that were outside of the tour that we were on. And then also, we had times when we weren't on tour and we were just booking shows. And so I always assumed the role of the guy who was doing the marketing and the promotion, because whether it was me working with a DJ or me working with a band, usually the other counterpart of that particular situation was more into like the performance and the creativeness and that side of it. But I was always about the business. And so I remember working on Facebook, promoting a show we had coming up and thinking, if all I had to do was this, just like promote on Facebook, I would be happy with this. And then I started kind of building on that. And, that turned into, could I do this for businesses? That turned into me becoming a sponge and learning everything that I could about marketing. And then I took a job working for a magazine, NM3 magazine. And at that time, it was like digital was starting to take off. Print was dying. I'm selling print ads. The print ads have to be good because people are A, not willing to spend money on them. B, if they do spend money on the ad and it doesn't convert, like I lose them, the retention's low, right? So I started focusing on copywriting. And because of that, I started focusing on having good calls to action, for print ads first. So I started to retain clients for that magazine. And then I went from there on to work for a TV station, and it was the same type of a thing. I learned quick that if the commercial that I created for a business wasn't bringing them business, then it was bust, and they would only stay on for a couple months, and then, retention would just fall out. So I at that time I hired a guy, Richard Borison, who's a copywriter and a coach, and I paid him a pile of money to work with him direct. He was selling like an online course, and I paid him a bunch of money to work directly with me instead of taking the course, and like teach me everything type of a thing. And he taught me how to write really compelling copy. And because of that, my retention was strong at the TV station. And those clients that I was doing TV ads for started asking me to consult them on other things. It started with, how can we create like a really good offer for this next commercial that we're going to do? And then from like, how are we going to bring them from seeing that commercial to the next step, which now we're getting into websites and things like that. So I started consulting them, and then I was at that same time taking more and more, courses and things like that. I was a sponge for Jay Abraham. He's one of my favorites. Also, I've always been big on sales. So guys like Grant Cardone, and then ended up launching my own company and leaving the TV station. I launched Lead Plan Marketing in 2016, and, been doing it full time for myself ever since.
Yeah, no, it's funny. We mentioned it before the show or before we started recording, and listeners of the show will know, but Mike is a DJ and plays clubs and does all that kind of stuff. So he's got some affiliations with the music business, and even beyond that, he does a lot of recording and stuff these days too. But it's funny hearing your story, because Mike and I make these parallels all the time with the music business, because my business too was born out of the back of a tour bus. And I wasn't talent, but I was management. So I was running around managing, road managing these little bands and stuff as we were coming up. And I was an art guy. So my business began with doing concert posters. And basically I was doing the posters, and I got to the point where I was doing so many posters, I had to start charging for them. And thus a business was born. And so, but I always ran the money. I always did the business part of the music business. And I wish I'd have learned to play an instrument or something in that time. Yeah. I never did. But it's funny, because we've always made this parallel between sort of trying to be an artist or a musician or whatever, and trying to be an entrepreneur, because I think people look at them as totally different. Like, they're both, like, one is wildly creative and one is just business or whatever. But what we've discovered through, 300 interviews on the show is that the creative juice that fuels the artist is the same that fuels the businessman. It's all the same. Yeah. And so it's really cool to hear your story, because this is it's evidence of what me and Mike espouse all the time. So anyway, I appreciate
so many
you
guys
that
I grew up with doing music with, that same thing, like they're in careers now that it all started in that basement with that karaoke machine for us, and it turned into, now I have friends that own large recording studios. I have a friend that's a sound engineer for a stadium down in Florida. The list goes on. I got another friend that's a stage manager. But it all started with that music. So it's like with the kids, I have 4 kids. So I'm like, you guys do what you want. I tell my wife, let them explore and do the thing. Cause a lot of parents are like, they wouldn't want their kid to go into music because it's such a long shot, but it's not really that shot. It's what they learn along the way that really is valuable.
Well, and it develops a lot of those core things that become really important in business, right? Self-confidence, the ability to know that you can actually do something, right? The ability to come up with an idea and actually convert it into something real. Because I think for a lot of young people who don't have a lot of experience, making that conversion step, going from concept to reality, I think that the confidence you build, whether it's in music or art or design or whatever you're doing, I think it's really important to get experience doing it.
100%. Yeah.
I actually, I've been volunteering a lot lately at an open mic here in town. Yeah. And I really enjoy the process of seeing new talent show up with their guitar, and they've never played in front of anyone before. And they jump on the mic and it's their first performance ever. And that to me is just the coolest thing ever, just to watch them grow from this nervous person into an artist that can confidently take the stage. So
you get up here for the first time, you're super nervous. I was always a little nervous though, honestly, no matter how many gigs I played, how many nationals I performed with. I was always a little bit nervous before I got on stage.
It's funny how you go, the butterflies are there at the beginning, and then you get on there and you play that first track, or you do that first song, and all of a sudden they're gone.
Yep.
Or they come right back once you hit the wrong note. So
yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit. Oh, go ahead, Mike.
I was going to ask you about your first role in corporate world, coming from, promoting your own brand, moving into a TV station. That's completely different from, doing your own thing. Now you got bosses. Now you got people telling you how you have to do it and how you have to, you have to take input. Can you give us a breakdown of that first year working in corporate land?
Yeah, it was definitely different. And when I worked at the magazine, we weren't corporate yet. That was independently owned. It was younger guys. They were my age, actually a little bit younger than me. We were all having a lot of fun. When I went to work for the TV station, that's when things got serious. And I learned a ton there, especially about sales and media. Obviously all the copywriting stuff that I was doing helped get me to where I'm at. But it was very much numbers focused. And I remember we'd have these sales meetings, where the GM of the station would come in and say, sales are down this quarter. I need ideas for how we're going to get sales up. And somebody would raise their hand. Some idiot would raise his hand, over here, and stand up and tell his idea. And the GM would say, that's garbage. That's the worst thing I've ever heard. Next. And I remember sitting there with good ideas going, I'm not going to raise my hand because this guy's going to crucify me in front of everybody if he doesn't like it. And that's when I started to think, I think I could take these ideas somewhere else. The whole corporate thing, it's so numbers focused, and it's non-emotional, and it's just very rigid. And I knew when I started Lead Plan that it couldn't be that way, although you have to have some focus on the numbers, right? You have to be making sales and things like that. But I never, ever wanted somebody in my company to feel like they couldn't raise their hand with an idea, because I knew those ideas that I had were great. In fact, one of those ideas I took to help launch my company. Had I given it to that TV station because I wasn't scared, they would have made a lot of money off of that idea. No doubt about it. So
what was it?
It was a funnel that I created for a school system that I was working with. I was doing TV commercials for them, but they needed something. They would, again, going back to digital was really taking off, internet was really taking off, and they needed something to help get, more kids signed up to go to their school, because here in Michigan, we have open enrollment where it doesn't matter what area you live in. Like, I can send my kid to school in the next county over to the public school. I don't know if it's like
cool
where you guys live at, but a lot of states, you have to be living in that county. School of choice, it's called. So when that happened, these schools, I was working with a few different schools. They were all like now thinking more like businesses, where they had to advertise and get the message out that they had a better sports program, music program, on and on. So I created a funnel that was like advertised on social media. They clicked it, they came in, there was a sign up where the school sent free information, and then somebody from the school would follow up with them to book them to come into the school and tour the school. I had this whole strategy and everything all mapped out. I didn't bring it up in one of those sales meetings because I was scared of the GM, who actually is one of my friends now, and I talked about it. But I did take it to the sales manager, and she looked at it and looked at me and said, John, this will never work. Like, it was like way over her head. So that was right close to when I left. And when I left the station, I went to that school and I sold that deal to that school, and they killed it. And that was one of the first deals that I sold for myself.
That's a great story.
Yeah, that's awesome. I wonder if we couldn't start to transition. We mentioned at the top of the show your P5 marketing strategy, but it's also related to your book. So I wonder if you talk a little bit about just sort of, I guess, your vision or your approach to marketing that you felt needed to be canonized in a book? And then let's talk a little bit about the content of that.
Cool. So I guess that formula started for me back in would have been 2017. I got a call from a supplement company that needed some marketing done. And basically at the time they were too big for me. But I analyzed everything. I had like one guy working for me and I was like, we're not ready for you guys. And the owner said, I respect that. I'm going to check on you guys in a year and see if you're ready. So he called me back in a year. We were ready, barely. We probably weren't, honestly, but we took him on. And he asked me to map him out like a marketing strategy. We were doing search engine optimization work for him. And he's like, I need more than just search engine optimization. Like, we need a whole marketing strategy. And so I took the basic buyer's journey, right? Which is awareness, consideration, decision. It's the 3 steps that we know every prospect goes through on their way to becoming a customer. But within that, there's several things that have to happen. I started looking at that buyer's journey and I'm like, well, in awareness, what do we need to do in awareness? What do we need to do in consideration? What do we need to do in decision? And from that, I turned it basically into 5 pillars. So number 1 is we have to be found. In that awareness phase, pillar 1 in my book is be found. So it's all things advertising, search engine marketing. It can be things like going to trade shows. It can be things like joining associations. Anywhere, and what I'll do when I'm creating a marketing plan for a client is I'll list out like anywhere I think we can, what I call intercept a buyer. Where can we intercept them at the right time with our message? And we'll have this whole list. And, later on, I'll whittle that list down, but I always like to start with a massive list. So now we know, once we have our message and we've devised our unique selling proposition and all those things, we know where our audience is at so we can get that message in front of them. But once they see that message and they take action on whatever that call to action is, they click that ad, the next step is we have to build a connection with them and we have to show them that we understand and empathize the problem that they're having. So pillar 2, build a connection or be known. How will we get them to know us, right? And be known by them. Usually nowadays that's done at a website. We're going to get them to click on an ad. They're going to come to a website. Now we want to have some copy that we've written in such a way that we show them that we understand the pain and we're really tapping into the emotional reasoning behind why they would make a purchase. It's a mattress company. Your back hurts. When you click on that ad about somebody with a horrible back or in back pain, you land on the website, you don't necessarily want to hear, we're XYZ mattress company who has been in business for 25 years, generational or whatever it might be, located at this in this area, here's our phone number. No, you want to read messaging that's about you and the problem that you're going through, and then be led to the conclusion that this company can resolve that problem for you, right? So in that second pillar, it's all about creating that messaging. And there's other things, getting them to opt in to like an email list so we can further get them to know us, further build that connection. But after that connection is built, and this is one that a lot of businesses miss, and we know it in sales, we have to gain trust before we can ask for a purchase. Mm-hmm. And it's really no different in marketing. They know who we are. We've got them in awareness. They've come to the website and now we've built that connection with them. We've tapped into some of those emotions. Now we have to show them that they can trust us. In the example of the mattress, it could be eliminating risk with a warranty. It could be breaking down, how that mattress is made, the unique process behind creating that mattress, the materials that the mattress are sourced for the mattress, the factory that it's in. I think did I say warranties? No, I said guarantees. Warranties would be another one. So we want to make a list now of all the different accolades, processes, guarantees, warranties that we can use in that trust pillar so that we can create a strategy to gain their trust. So if we've done all that, they've found us, they've connected with us, we've now earned or gained their trust. the next thing would be to ask for the purchase. So how are we going to ask for the purchase in this marketing plan? And usually what will happen there, I work with some service brands, but I work with or companies, but I work with a lot of product brands, especially in the supplement industry. So in that kind of a marketing plan, we'll map out all the different discounts that we could give at different times and get, sign offs from that, for the proper people at the brand or at the company. Any holidays we want to have special offers, but usually with supplements, it's a first offer. So you'll see a retargeting ad. Usually you've been to the website. Now you go back to your Instagram, you see a retargeting ad for that product that's like 50% off. That's what we would call a loss leader, because we know that if we can get them to buy that, we already have a second and third offer in line before we lead them to a subscription. So we're willing to lose 50%. Make that offer, you make the purchase, then you get your product in the mail and it has a second offer with it. Hey, on your next purchase, enjoy 20% off maybe. We get the second purchase, then we know that our chances of getting them into a subscription model are quite high. They liked it enough to buy it again, so let's offer them a deal on a subscription. Just giving you an example of how that strategy could work for pricing. And then the last pillar is talk about us. So now that we've created this new customer, how can we get them to help spread brand awareness, and talk about us, give us reviews, build a case study, talk about us on their social media and tell their friends about this great new product that they're using. So we want to have a strategy in place for that. And we put all those pillars together. Then we have a thorough marketing plan that we know is going to impact that buyer, that new customer every step of the way.
Yeah, no, I love that. I think that's, it's really comprehensive, and I especially appreciate sort of the trust building aspect. I think a lot of people sort of lump that into like awareness or whatever, like they're building trust, but I like calling it out as a separate thing. I also like sort of that after the sale bit, because I think a lot of people sort of think of job done once we've got the purchase. And so yeah. I think that's a really wise approach.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's especially that fifth pillar can be so easily overlooked, but it's like you have this new customer. If you can build a system to like get video reviews from a customer, then you can take those video reviews right back to your trust pillar and keep building on that to bring in new customers.
Yeah. I used to sell auto glass. We'd go door to door, and you could see a crack in a window, and it's easy to say, oh, he needs some auto glass fixed. And one of the main things that I would do that none of my other employees or people that were working with me would do is I would call old customers. I just cold call them. If I had some downtime, I'd be like, hey, I know you live in a construction area. I'm just checking up on you. Want to make sure that the window that we installed is great and that you don't need any more help. And usually within a week or so, I can get 3 or 4 windshields sold from just cold calling old customers, because they like the product. They like the fact that we come to their house and do it. We've already built trust with them. It's easy to just say, hey, let me call the insurance company. We'll get that done. So
basic sales, man. I love it. It's funny how those types of tactics, they're not sexy, they're not high tech, they're not expensive. It's just putting in the work and getting the result.
Exactly.
Yeah. I love that. And we often advocate, for relationship development and things like that as we talk about the different marketing things that we do. And, it is funny how much, you can do some really amazing things with tech these days, but just being human, will go a really long way.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%.
So tell us about your book. How long have you spent writing it? What does it cover? I think you broke down a little bit of it just now, but tell us about the writing process.
Okay. So the book took 2.5 years. And a lot of that is because I was just busy, and I was, writing in between being busy. My team had a lot of input on this book too. We would sit down and I'd write a piece of it. I'd take it to the team. The team would go over it. They'd add things, take things out. We got to the new year. No, actually, it would have been before the new year. It was like November, I decided I was going to finish the book. Come hell or high water, I got to get this thing done and get it out. It's been way too long. So I decided I work out in the morning for an hour every morning. So I decided I'll take my gym time and put it into this book. So that way I can see myself getting out of shape. I'll be motivated to get it done. And it worked. I did it. I had it done by the first of the year, because I started a workout program the first of the year to get myself back in shape, but got everything tightened up, put it up for sale on Amazon. I think it's like $14.99 for the hard copy. And it did well. It went to the highest we got was number 51 on the Amazon bestsellers list for advertising books. It stayed there for several weeks. Since then, it's fallen off, and then it goes back on, and then it falls off. I check it periodically. But so far, lots of good feedback on the book. The book, it covers, it's really about that 5-pillar formula, but it goes a little bit deeper than that. It also goes into branding and brand strategy, which Ryan, you'll probably like. But a lot of times, especially with new startups in the product realm, they'll come to us as an agency and they'll say, "Hey, I got this new sleep formula that I want to sell, and I created it because I had a hard time sleeping, and I created this formula and I took it to a manufacturer. They're making the product, and I had my niece, who's a graphic design student, her first year in college, do the label for me, and they show this label, and we're like, oh God." It says stuff on it that like makes no sense, and and then we in the beginning would say, oh, okay, we don't want to call somebody's baby ugly, so we take it and try to market it, and it would be a huge waste of time and money for everybody, because they didn't start with, from the beginning, understanding that audience, understanding the gap they needed to fill with the product, and so that the people would want the product and buy it, right? So the book goes into what marketing really is. And this is another thing that I haven't covered. One thing that drove me crazy when I was at the TV station was I was working with marketing agencies that weren't marketing agencies. They were media buying companies.
Exactly. Yeah.
But they called themselves marketing agencies. And then you have, SEO agencies who call themselves marketing agencies, web design shops who call themselves marketing agencies. And it started to really come to light to me that a lot of people in marketing didn't really understand what marketing itself really is. So when you look at the actual textbook definition of marketing, it's the management process of taking a product from development to customer place. And there's a argument of whether it involves 3 Ps or 4 Ps, but I always say 4 Ps. So it starts with research and development of product. Your marketing team should be involved in developing the new product that you're thinking about bringing to market. Once the product's done, it's developing a strategy for pricing. Super important. We got this new product. We understand the gap we're going to fill, but we have these competitors. We want to make sure we're priced right. If you're going to be a new brand in the marketplace, you're probably going to want to be priced less, so people don't have such risk involved in buying. And then once you have the price ready, it's placement of the product so that it can be available for sale to the marketplace. And then it's the final P is promotion. Now that the product's there, we want to promote it. And a lot of most everybody focuses on that final P of promotion, and that's marketing to them. It's advertising, but it's not. It's all those things. So in the book, I go deep on developing a product, doing the right kind of research, making sure that any copywriting that you're going to put on that bottle or on your website really is going to impact the person that you're trying to sell it to. We do things like I'll go to if we're launching a new supplement brand, I'll go to the local GNC and I'll stand in front of all these supplements and try to figure out whichever one jumps out to me, why it jumps out to me. Yeah. And sometimes I'll take a picture of it and go home and look at it and really try to figure out, why is it? Is it, because it was bright blue and it said this particular thing,
So I love that. The fact that you went and looked at what an actual store shelf And this is what my product's going to be sitting on. What stands out on this shelf to me? And then you find it, then you analyze it, then you figure out why. That's a huge step that I think a lot of people just don't do. So
yeah, they don't. And they just, I've seen some pretty interesting labels from people that we had one that this guy had a testosterone product that we rebranded and launched. It did really, really well, but he had this whole idea around Top Gun, and he wanted to do these bottles that looked like Top Gun, and they were like really terribly done. And we started digging into the audience, which is middle-aged males who are into health and fitness, and they're really the guys that he's after are like doctors, professionals. They're less likely to fall for something so gimmicky, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Had he launched with that, I don't think he would have done as well, but he argues with me because we launched right around the time the new Top Gun movie launched. He's like, I don't know, man, we might have a huge opportunity.
Yeah, it might have worked, but it might not have lasted long. So I think you're probably giving good advice. I wanted to just kind of go back a little bit to what you were just talking about, because I could like almost hear audibly all the hearts of young entrepreneurs and small businesses breaking, because they all do exactly what you're talking about, right? Where they start a product or start a brand or start whatever based on, a pain point they're trying to address or a thought they had or whatever, right? So they go ahead and just start down the road of some kind of product, and then they try and engage with a company like you, and they already brought it to you, right? They didn't begin the process in like, I guess, this ideal formula, the way that you were talking about. And so for the person who has done that, I guess it seems to me that you're skipping some steps, or like that individual has skipped some steps, but I mean, it's hard to, I guess, put the dog back in the house, or the horse back in the barn. In a lot of instances, maybe not to change a label, but maybe they're just going to going to market with product that just, I don't know, just doesn't work, or it's a bad idea. How would you advise these young companies, these startups, these people who are, the one-man operator who's building their place, but they've just by sheer will and just by pushing snow uphill have managed to make some sales and, have what's starting to look like a company, and they're ready to engage with a company like yours? How do you, I guess, write the path for them so that, they can take whatever they've done, but it's not a total waste, and begin to sort of layer new information on top of that?
Yeah. Two things that I always say that I've seen personally in successful brands is A, there's a really good product, and B, there's a really good owner who's what I call the heartbeat of the brand. And it's that person that you're talking about that is behind the brand, pushing it uphill, even though the graphics on the label might not be the best, or the product maybe doesn't fill the biggest niche, but they're still able to, through pure will, sell the product and start to build the company. If you have that in place, you definitely can. There's exceptions to every rule, right? But you will get to a point where you've established that company. I'm working with a brand that's going through this right now. Actually, I started doing SEO work for him 5 years ago. He launched this brand out of his apartment, working by himself. He's now a multi-million-dollar company. He's got a staff, and we're looking at the branding going, this was good when it was a bootstrap and like you just had to have something so that you could push this through. But now you're known as this large brand and you don't look like that. So now we have to go and affect it. And so in that kind of a case, we don't want to just scrap the brand visuals that he's created because he's known. We're not going to change the name, and he has a specific look that he's known for. So what we're going to do is evolve that brand a little bit. We'll keep some of those same components and we'll just evolve it and make it look more professional, make it look more tight. And we're also in the midst of launching the product on different platforms. He started out with a website selling mainly through social media influencers. Now he's got some professional athletes behind the product, and we're moving into other platforms like Amazon is one that we're really focused on right now. So that's what we do in that kind of a case, is we don't want to just completely wipe out what that entrepreneur has built around the brand, but we do want to take the brand and make it now the visual aesthetic look like it is what it is at the level that it's at now.
Right. That makes sense. Also, just to sort of, I guess, extrapolate on that question a little bit, let's say they come to you and like you told, the example client you mentioned, except for maybe the opposite, they're just not ready for you, right? They're not ready to actually come to a marketing agency. They've got a product, they've got an idea, maybe they've got some sales, but like they're not really ready to engage with somebody like you. And so is there advice that you might give somebody that might be the precursor to working with somebody like you? Like you should be taking these steps with your brand or your product so that you're ready to, pour gas on it with us in 6 months.
Yeah. I mean, I would just think really about your customer and who you're selling your product to. And maybe you're at a level where you've already done that. But think through that journey that new customer especially takes, and make sure that you're hitting all those different pillars that we talked about and that the book talks about. That's going to give you a really structured foundation, for scale. As far as, other than that, it's just work hard to get the sales and keep pushing and growing the company till you get to a level where you can contract somebody. Or an agency, if you're going to contract a freelancer, this is another mistake that I see a lot, is you get a designer and you say, we want a website. And the designer goes, okay, cool. Here's a website. And you're like, I think let's change this. Let's do this. We don't like that. Let's move this. That can go back and forth a lot. If it's just a freelancer, they may not have a process to deliver exactly what it is that you want. So if you're working with a lot of freelancers before agencies, just be prepared to direct. And if you really understand your customer and your audience, then you should be able to direct that freelancer to say, hey, I need a website and it needs to do X, Y, Z. It needs to have this kind of messaging. We're going to be talking to this audience. Because that freelancer really is an extension of you. That freelancer is a tool. So in order to take your brand kind of that next level and your sales to the next level using those freelancers, just be prepared to direct and give them what they need so they can give you what you need.
Yeah, I think that's good advice. I also want to dig into a little bit this idea of knowing your core audience. Mike mentioned, and you were talking about the process of, just looking at the thing on the shelf and trying to understand what it is that brings you in. And Mike mentioned that that's just something that I think most people just don't do, right? They just don't take the time to even do it. I think that happens a lot for especially small to maybe up and coming businesses, people who are actually getting sales. Maybe they don't know who their audience is in particular. Like they have started selling to a group of people. Some people are buying their product, but like they don't really know who it is that's their audience. And you hear stories all the time about, I was selling to so-and-so group, but then so-and-so group discovered it. And then it was like, night and day different. And so I wonder, do you have any thoughts around, identifying a core audience and understanding who you're speaking to at those really early levels? So when I do engage a freelancer or do engage a firm like yours, I can come to you and say, definitively, this is who we serve.
Yeah. There's definitely scenarios where you start out, like you were saying, selling to one audience and end up selling to a completely different one. I would take it a step back before that and say the best thing that you can do is pick an audience and then develop a product or a service that's going to cater to that audience so you know who it is. And the best way that you can do that is through market research. There's maybe 1,000 roofing companies in the area where any given person lives, as one example. But maybe through market research, you find that there's a big need for slate roofing, and there's only one other company that specializes in slate roofing. And people who buy slate are people who make more money. They're usually a little bit older. They may have different aspirations or values or whatever that might be. Tap into that audience. And then, so now you go from, I'm going to launch a roofing company to we're going to launch a slate roofing company. And we're going to talk to this audience of people that we know is going to be more apt to buy that kind of a product.
Yeah, that raises an interesting point too, especially where you do so much work with, multiple supplement companies. Because it sounds almost like you're making a point for niching down, right? Like focusing on something where, or identifying a gap or a need. But when you're working with supplement companies, there's maybe no business with more competition out in the market. So, I mean, how are you able to look at those kinds of companies and help them find these little gaps? Because it seems like they'd be really hard to identify.
Yeah. Especially when a lot of people that are using supplements might not even know any. Oh, it looks cool. Oh, it's going to make me strong. On a podcast. Yeah, exactly. Joe Rogan talks about it.
Yeah. So that's what, on it. So that's one type of a customer, is somebody who's maybe younger. And so there's a few different types. So let's start with the younger, jacked gym rat guy. Like, he just wants to build on as much muscle as he possibly can. He doesn't necessarily care about some of the crap that might be in that supplement. If it's going to make him big, that's his main concern. Then you have people who are older, middle-aged. They're more health focused. They're definitely more concerned about what's going into their body. Not only do they want to know what's in the product, they want to know what's not in the product. So you want to highlight those things in your marketing. No GMO, no heavy metals, keto friendly, whatever it might be, low carb. So there's definitely different audiences. And then also, when it comes to marketing supplements, it's all in the formula. The formula is everything. So if you are somebody who takes supplements and you know what it is you want, the first thing you do is flip over that bottle. I'm buying a protein powder. I want to make sure that this formula has the highest amount of protein that I can possibly get, but has the lowest amount of carbs, because I'm not trying to do like a bulk where I'm going to gain a lot of fat. I want to just gain lean mass. So I want to go, maybe it's got higher natural fats, but it's got super high protein and low amount of sugars in it. When you're marketing a protein powder against the competition in that space, because there's lots of protein powders out there, you can highlight things like, when it comes to formulation, there's brands that will hide like sugars in other ingredients, where they only have to put that the ingredient is in there. They don't have to put the amount of sugar that ingredient carries. Like, there's tricks and, that you can highlight in that kind of marketing. But there's lots of different audiences in that space. There's lots of different formulas, and in the end, what we're selling in that industry is health. And if you're somebody who's going to launch a supplement product, that's really what you need to understand, is that you're selling health at some capacity. Maybe it's fitness, maybe it's sports nutrition product, and you're selling like this big buff guy, right? But that's what you're selling. You're not really selling protein powder. You're selling the end result.
Like that. The landscape of SEO is kind of changing with ChatGPT and with everything out there that's just kind of automating the system. Are there some things that, it's just like, if you're marketing on Amazon, or if you're not necessarily going for the top ranked Google search anymore, are there things that stand out to you that you can do differently in like an SEO campaign for Amazon, or anything that helps in this newer age of tech?
Yeah, things are definitely changing. ChatGPT brings in lots of changes, and I know there's marketers that don't like it at all. I think it's awesome. I think what it's bringing to the table is great, and it's just another tool for us marketers to use. As far as SEO, I'm really big on having smaller strategies rather than, we're going to rank your website for 500 keywords. A lot of SEO companies will say, we'll do that. And then they'll say, look, all this traffic's coming in, and the client's going, yeah, but we're not getting a lot of sales. It's because it's not highly qualified traffic. And you're better off niching down a little bit, understanding how, going back to that, intercepting the buyer. How can we intercept this buyer at the right time? I'll give you an example that I use for my own website. So we work with a lot of new supplement brands, and we know that the best time we can intercept our buyer, for a new supplement brand buyer, is when they're looking for a manufacturing facility. Because if you decided today that you're going to, create the next elderberry immunity supplement, the first thing you would want to know is, how much is it going to cost to manufacture it? That's like the starting point. So we made a top 5 list of the best manufacturers in the industry for startups, and it shows their certifications, their minimum order quantities, the size of their facility, if they do capsules, powders, liquids, things like that. And we published this article on our website. And then we worked to rank that article on the first page of Google nationally for when somebody was searching best supplement manufacturers. I remember is one of the keywords. There were others too. So we got that to rank on the first page nationally. And then when you click it, which we got a lot of clicks because we did the work for somebody who's new. They're like, oh, great, here's the top 5. I'll just click here. Boom, it lists them out. And then at the bottom, it offers them a guide to start a supplement brand. The guide just top 10 things you need to do to start a new supplement brand or something like that. You fill out the information. Now you go into an email sequence. Now we start bringing you into this whole world through that email sequence of building a supplement brand. And we're getting the customer before they get to the manufacturer so that they don't come to us and go, hey, I had my niece design this bottle. And so that kind of an SEO strategy has worked really well for us. And I've used that same type of a strategy in different industries. It's worked really well. And then with what you said about Amazon, the interesting thing about Amazon is that algorithm loves traffic that comes from outside of Amazon. So if you're a brand that's selling on Amazon, if you can, anything you can do to bring people to your Amazon listing is going to show that algorithm that the product is in demand, and it's going to increase your visibility of that product, which means you're going to start, just like on Google, you're trying to move up for keywords, same thing on Amazon. It's going to go, oh, the product's in demand. Let's show it to more people, and your keywords are going to start improving those ranking positions. So I always say, if you can use SEO to bring traffic usually into your website and then send it to your Amazon listings, if you're focused on improving Amazon sales, that's a great way to go. Not everyone's focused on improving Amazon sales. They'd rather sell through the website. There's higher margins. Amazon's not taking a cut, but
yeah, that makes sense.
No, I think that's really interesting. Well, and that's a cool strategy too, to sort of intercept your people ahead of manufacturing. That's sort of would negate some of the problems we've discussed on the show.
Yeah.
It's funny. It's hilarious because Ryan, one of his favorite quotes is to say, as a graphic designer, his biggest competition is someone's niece or nephew. And you mentioned it twice.
See, it's always somebody's niece, I'm telling you. So one thing I want to get into, we talked a little bit about, when somebody comes to you with cruddy label, right? So we've talked about the visual aesthetics a little bit, but you started early on in our conversation talking about a focus on copywriting. And so I wonder if we could talk a little bit about just sort of the role of storytelling and marketing, and then sort of how we balance being creative for creative's sake with like making sure that we're hitting key metrics and that we're actually driving a result that we're hoping to achieve.
Yeah. So we at Lead Plan, we practice Donald Miller's story branding. Have you read that book, or do you know who Donald?
I'm familiar with it. Yeah.
Okay. So when you're doing what's called the brand script, I always present it as the brand script it's the story of what it is that we're taking to market. It could be a product, it can be a service, but it's what we're taking to market. And in this story that we're going to write a story, and we never are going to take this story and just publish it to the website or something. This is an internal document, but we want to write the story. And in that story, we want to position the customer as the star of the story, which Donald hammers this hard. If you read his book, I think it's what is it?
Building a story brand.
Building a story brand. Yeah, thanks. So we want to make that, and that's going into that emotional reasoning that I was talking about, understanding if they're buying a mattress, why is that? What kind of pains are they going through? And speaking on that, so when they come to the website, it's not just a bunch of copy about yourself and your company and how great you are. And then we want to position the brand as the guide. And an example that I always use, the same one that Donald Miller uses, it's the story of Karate Kid. So Karate Kid had a problem. He was getting beaten up by this bully at school. He wanted to get this girl. He looked like an idiot. He met Mr. Miyagi, the guide or the brand. Mr. Miyagi told him, well, you should get karate, learn karate, and you can win the Valley tournament, beat up the bully, get the girl. And that's what he did. And right. So we want to do the same thing in a brand story. We want to take that person that's having this problem, in this case, back pain, they need to get a new mattress. We want to address why it is, put all the focus on them and the problem that they're having, why they should get this new mattress. And then be the guide to bring them to the conclusion that the product that you offer is the best option for them.
Yeah, no, I really like that. And you know, I think it's interesting to think about, you know, the importance of storytelling, because, you know, as a visual designer, my bias is always, you know, oh, well, it's got to be really pretty, but it's really, I mean, the story is the thing, right? Like, I mean, you know, great logo is awesome. And obviously, like we've discussed, I mean, there's something to meeting expectations, right? Looking the part and making sure that you're at a level that, you know, matches the brand you're trying to portray. But getting that story right, I think, is really important. And I think it's sometimes maybe even underplayed, because I think it's really easy for a small business owner, for example, to contract with a graphic designer to help build the label for the product they've already designed, right? Or the product they've already created. But I don't think a lot of people go to a, you know, brand strategist or a copywriter first. And so I think it's interesting, because I think it's actually, you know, in terms of process or what's actually most effective, it's the other way around, right? It's going to be the text ad that you read somewhere, or the native advertisement that gets placed that looks like an article, or to your point, you know, like sort of a white paper or some sort of deliverable.
That's true. You know, but that design aspect that you're talking about is also equally important, because that lends to the credibility, the look, that visual aesthetic that you see. Like when you land on somebody's website or see their ad, you know, by the way that website is designed, if they're serious about what they're doing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And for me, you know, I mean, I'm sure it sounds like you're the same way, but I mean, for me, I'm very, you know, I mean, if the brand doesn't match the message, like if I get there and it, you know, I start going, okay, well, is this legitimate? Is this a scam? Is this, you know, because like, okay, well, you drew me in with this message, or, you know, to your point about like the mattress, right? Okay, well, I have a bad back, and you said all the right things to get me to click, but then I come here and it looks like, you know, your niece did it. Then, you know,
sloppy design.
Then all of a sudden I go, okay, well, maybe this is a scam, or maybe this isn't where I want to be. You know? So I mean, you're right. They are two parts of the same thing, right? The yin and the yang. But I do think that maybe people underestimate the importance of the story.
I would also emphasize your processes as well. I don't buy anything on Instagram, hardly ever. If I'm scrolling through and I see an ad that stands out to me, I'm like, well, that's cool, whatever, keep going. I don't usually buy it. The one time that I clicked on an Instagram ad and said, I got to have this, I clicked through everything, and the checkout process was garbage. Like, you couldn't actually buy the product. And I think lots of times people get caught up in the advertising or the aesthetics or the words, the verbiage. But if you can't hit that checkout process, I didn't end up buying the product because of it. So it's all a giant, you got to get all the pieces in the right order and working correctly to get the funnel to work correctly.
Well, and that goes back to that end-to-end 5-pillar process, right?
Yeah, exactly. I guess with I was gonna say, I guess with that, we're kind of at that hour mark. Do you want to tell people where they can reach out, how they can get in touch with you, maybe buy your book?
Sure. You can find me on my website, leadplanmarketing.com, LEADPLAN marketing.com. You can find me on LinkedIn as John Smiddy, and the book is available on Amazon. It's called Stop Guessing, Start Marketing. It's $14.95 for the paperback and 99 cents for the Kindle version. So go grab it and reach out to me anytime.
That's awesome. Well, yeah, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. I think, you know, a lot of the things that we covered in here, like, I mean, for people who spend a lot of time in marketing, they seem sort of basic, but I think for the entrepreneur, for the up and comer, not all of this stuff is as obvious as it seems, right? I mean, it is in the sense that we all go through this process, like, even if it's happening subconsciously, when we go to make a purchase, we do all these steps, but to really break them out and think about them, you know, individually and apply a process to it, I think is really powerful for people. So thank you for, you know, putting together the book and for sharing your knowledge here.
Yeah, guys, thanks for having me on. It was great to meet you both.
Likewise.
Absolutely. And thanks so much to everybody who tunes into the show this week and every week. And we'll see you guys next time.